strange actions, reminders, scary words or sounds to them. This is not madness. This is beyond the Joker. Frightening situations. Their ending is mostly equal, especially in our world, but their bodies are reminded by the people and the world. I shock you to delete it and watch the creation of scientific and religious fatwas. The question is these exorcism sessions, not the truth of them. Is it really what befalls them is demonic possession like girl dung, or what's left of a girl who was killed by the closest people to her and her father, and the reason is only the devil, and most of you know that this is the heroine of the famous movie released in 2005, is the horror movie The Express's Move Emily Rose, which tells the story of a girl who underwent for more than 65 exorcisms in 1 year, and in her life she was airborne and tortured. A German girl named Anneliese Michel, the young girl who converted to Islam, is 23 years old. She was subjected to various bodily tortures, and for her part it is chilling. You recognize. I am definitely in the context of the episode. Destroying myths, possessing demons, and exorcising evil spirits. What is the truth of this ancient phenomenon or practitioner? In the explanation of this video, there are links to personal accounts on Instagram and Facebook for those who wanted to follow me and contact me to provide any information or comment about the return of evil spirits first, but demonic. Through special rituals and rituals, this practice is not a product of modern times. He has not been married since ancient times in various religions, and there is no specific date for the emergence of this practice from the mosque. It is mentioned in the Torah, the Bible, the precious books of Hindus and Buddhists, and of course Islam prohibits this phenomenon, and we will discuss all this in detail later. The first thing to consider, and in a quick loan to organize this work I preferred in 1614 from the Vatican, the Pope, along the V. I put what its name is the ritual of exorcism or the 8 of exorcisms. I've been organizing this practice of big news reporting, and it has gotten out of hand. The organization of this network was working alone after making sure that the case presented actually represented a sultan who wanted to carry out the process of exorcism must be the papal representative in the field of these teachings, and these teachings were reviewed and ratified again by the Vatican in 1999. And the reason is the great demand for exorcism evil, and these teachings still exist to this day. The real absentee or the fictional side. For example, you have Davnino by Carey, Michael Cole's American Exhaust book, and of course spirits, demons and horrors in materials for filmmakers. File in the Moon. You know that most of these movies are based on a true story. In fact, the stories are there. There are hundreds of known and canceled exorcism stories. It is not known that the matter takes social networking sites and accepted by the various media. Some of them are real and some are not. Below, we review some of them. Take a deep breath and get ready for this terrifying stop. One of the most famous stories of demonic possession and exorcism is the story of the German girl Anneliese Michel, which, as I mentioned earlier, is based on the famous 2000 Pies by Emily Rose. This girl was first revealed when she was 16 years old. She is a year old. She was diagnosed. The parents returned to the doctors, who gave the girl different drugs and larger doses, but the matter was joking, forbid, her condition was worse. The girl and her family were convinced from behind her that she is one of the moths that are hunted by evil spirits, that is, Satanism, and there is nothing wrong with ridding her of her torment. He made the moon, at the insistence of the parents and with the help of 2 priests, and then with the permission of the local bishop, 75, and began its operations and cast out demons, and stopped the counsel of the family. A girl was subjected to 67 expulsions for the same year, during which she stopped eating and drinking until she weighed nearly 30 kilograms, or broke her knee as a result of permanent art for more than a year. Look for feeding and severe dehydration. The girl died at the age of 23, originally moving. The parents and the priest were arrested, but the punishment was simple. That is, the killing was unintentionally. During the trial, the two priests highlight the recordings and photos and, in terrifying curiosity, show the girl's change of form through the skin, strange characteristics emanating from a second language speaking Latin and in another language. The value of coffee in court did not take into account these recordings, until the story of the girl became the most famous tales of demonic possession and expulsion to this day. One of the most famous British murders, and the influence of its criminals closely related to the practices of exorcist Michael Taylor, the man who murdered his wife with horrific brutality. In 74, man killed his wife with his wife only her hands, girlfriends, her eyes and tongue, and at least half of her, and then created her dog face and went out into the street area covered in hay, which is also his right, but most of all Michael, didn't know what he was doing. He was proven in trials to be insane. But what was revealed during the trial was an economist who showed him the murder of his wife, Michael's trick, an exorcism in the church to be carried out after his behavior and tantrums escalated somewhat. Bring guardians to the congregation or church. Prepare for this course and course. According to the priests who presided over the exorcism sessions, they were able to cast out at least 40 demons during the session. He still remembers the demonic madness, Dimmu said, murder and demon brutality. Did you find the link between sessions and the horrible shrew? Of course. Kreator was placed in a mental institution after being proven insane for 2 years and then imprisoned in a maximum security prison before being released after 2 years. His imprisonment, the case of Taylor, who has attempted suicide 4 times before, shows the same symptoms that the two beasts believed in his wife. The authorities did not prepare to return him to the stage of psychiatric treatment. You don't notice us when you touch it. It may get infected again. According to the BBC, the killers, his brother, the boy, and her husband are from the African Republic of the Congo. The reason they believe that the doctor was possessed by demons and practiced black magic. Kreator's divorce, according to the report, which was mentioned on more than one website this year, is a polite divorce, and his death is for the sake of convenience, and in the end his death in the bathtub affected him. Slavery and the effects of torture are evident in our Arab world. Many of these issues are only present in one roundup on social media or even on TV channels dedicated to that matter. Change in diet is a phenomenon in an incident in Egypt. On the 20th of February, 26 girl died after being given electric shocks by a spiritual healer, who also called himself. The demon's possession deal remained after the devices with her family. She has a mental illness. That's not all, either. Without mentioning the name of this Saudi, who is performing the process of exorcising demons, or as you know, Arab and Islamic, with the pen of Ruqyah on a Moroccan girl in France, and the path was her path, to remove the jinn from the woman with the flagrant offense, and the result is the killing of the woman, the love of the man forever, and many other stories that can challenge one community and religion. But it is noted here that the rituals are linked to them, or the methods used in these cases differ according to different religions, and each religion has a method of printing. This is the next station that we start. And after Islam, Hadi advances to it and practices it vigorously. and the legal raku occupies the first place in these practices, followed by the operations of separating the touch and expelling Satan and others, and many operations are performed by lying down. Distinguish the possessed, and the old man has papers as he is Khaled standing above his head with his hands on his head. These verses from the Holy Quran are mentioned. In some cases, Zamzam water and a special type of alcohol-free perfume called attar is used. This method is not necessarily the method followed according to researchers and writers in al-Qarnawi sociology, and its reward is the process of expelling Satan. And using the Quran is divided into 3 stages. The first stage removes any prohibited material from the room in which the process takes place, such as musical instruments, pictures, gold, and non-superior decorations. Allow angels to enter according to believers. Then the therapist tells people the text. The therapist determines whether the person is possessed or not, and of course enters into a dialogue with the spirit to determine whether it is from jinns, ghosts, demons, or others. The sheikh returns and asks the possessed about the dreams he had and his feelings in them, and among them the sheikh purifies himself, the ladle, and those present in preparation for the third stage. The actual process of expulsion begins with the recitation of a surah. From the noble Quran Surah Al-Fatiha, and Al-Baqarah wa chair and others. It is permissible to use honey and holy water, that is Zamzam water, in the development of a person who has caries from the inside and outside. In the context of the episode, they support the opinion of Muslim scholars, the prevailing wind in the countryside about the Christian practice of the existence of jinn, demons and evil spirits, as demons are mentioned more than once in the Bible and even more than that. In the Bible and in more than one place, Christ confronts demons and drives him out of the bodies of the poor with phrases and stories transmitted in Christianity, complimenting the same person who is on his knees, and in some cases binds him, to prepare to control it. Practice, and of course bearers of a doctor who are like Christians are also afraid of demons. The possessed person is sprinkled with holy water in a pie, and the devil is expelled after the priest repeats the devil's request to leave the person's body in the name of the Lord. And Judaism has a share in exorcism. A book was published in Hebrew, later translated into English, entitled Mention Yehuda, specializing in exorcism. Some details of the process in Jewish thought mention a piece of marble torn in the practical Kabbalah. In the presence of a group of 10 people called the Minya, this group listened in a circle around the person whose birth is intended. The 91st part of the Psalms 3 times, some of which the rabbi breathed into the shofar, that is, during a century. The ram is not afraid and runs away. It is made of 2 tones of hating and weakening the force that a person wears. Then the rabbi returns and begins to communicate with this force to determine what it is and ask why it is worn by this person. In return, a group of O Messenger of God recites the prayers and holds special ceremonies. Making the wearer feel safe from leaving the body is for life, and is not limited to the 3 monotheistic religions, but extends to other religions. In Buddhism, for example, it goes back to the beginnings of the old Buffet. The process is carried out by one of the priests specialized in this matter. A Buddhist priest recites hymns and stanzas from the balcony, a collection of books that prescribe beliefs and prayers. Buddhism, with some special ceremonies in carrying torches as well as sprinkling water on an organized person. The phenomenon of exorcism has a special significance in the Buddhist belief, especially in the region where the 29th day of the 12th tactical month is devoted to this phenomenon and is called Doctor. On this day, all the focus is on expelling evil spirits from different places and the negative energy they carry, expelling them along with the previous year's misfortune, thus empowering the followers of this white religion with a bright new year. The holy day begins with the large religious dance circles held by the lower. Temples are patronized in different parts, and people clean the houses specially for them on this day with the decoration of the rooms, and there follow a soup dedicated to this day called your corpse. And in the evening people carry torches born from the words of exorcisms, similar to the process of exorcism. Spirits by corrupting this compensation and the names of sacred instruments through a cleric, and these demons loudly reward on the parties provided for two reasons. In this person's jealousy, he uses black magic to make the evil spirit take over the other person, and then begins a process that satisfies these evil spirits. This operation is carried out by the fascists. They are officers of the Crusaders' forces, and they were exclusively Taoists. They raised him with prayers and special spells for some exorcism movements. Sometimes the fascist strikes himself with sharp objects to show his bravery from the evil spirit, the most famous of which is to leave. Then he collects this blood, which is considered sacred, and puts it in front of the house in which the person is, and sometimes before him the houses of the village from which this person comes, in general to prevent me from returning these souls again. But if these previous rituals, practices, experiences, and stories become so amazing, what about what you hear on my country? Tongue, people of knowledge and knowledge here are crushed by the following cheetah, and I go fast as strange language and sounds that have nothing to do with the body it comes out of. If something supernatural happens, science is on alert as usual, but the situation here is different. And although the majority of specialists and scientists forget about the so-called satanic and the accompanying processes of exorcism and the like, I was shocked by the scientific research and reading in this field. In a lengthy article dealing with this topic, Feynman published an article on the opinion of other sciences on the phenomenon of demonic possession. On my head, I interviewed Dr. Richard Gere, a famous psychiatrist and lecturer at Columbia University and New York Medical College. The story of the doctor who was known as the exorcist's advisor is a really strange one. The story began on the lips of the doctor with not believing in the so-called demonic possession and expulsion and change, even though he is from a religious Catholic family that believes in the existence of Satan and his frightening abilities possessed by the doctor, and thanks to his studies and work, he denied this phenomenon, just as it is with other paranormal phenomena. One of the most famous exorcists in the United States, Dr. Richard, is a respected person in the field, and he himself seeks his advice and assistance in exorcism sessions whenever the need arises to roar, as the woman claims, from Satan, who possessed her and made her under his will, the moon, which frightened her and made her unable to make the right decisions. The priest turned her into an exorcist, and he, in turn, transferred her to Dr. Richard. Find out if she suffers from mental illness. After examination and sessions, the doctor discovered that I do not suffer from mental illness, and so attention turned to sessions to exorcise demons out of curiosity. The doctor attended the session that changed my life. The church in which the operation was carried out is equipped and brought here the strangeness. In the middle of it, well, as the priest begins to read passages of scripture, and things begin to fly off the shelves before the eyes of those present, and the doctor among them has the frightening sounds of Latin speaking. The doctor's mother receives his first shock when Julia tells him that his mother died of uterine cancer the night before. The session was preceded by 2 cats who were killed by the doctor in his home. I got into a crazy fight with her for no reason. This is not all. Dr. Richard, and what he mentioned in another article he published in the middle of the points Betty succeeded in reaching even though it is thousands of miles away. How good was one of the calls that was made? Doctor with the priest in charge of the weather. Oh, and without warning to the man, that one of the deep and frightening sounds that came from Julia during one of the phone sessions the doctor did not stop as he said, but it felt strange, and since then, and for a while 25 years ago, the doctor became a believer in demonic possession, although he says it is because touch is rare, and that in most cases this is done by patients to hide that they are not possessed. But he returns and confirms with observations that this phenomenon and the operations that bring it back are a reality. Phenomenon, and 12 articles in a WX video in which he defends Dr. Ashdod's principle, asserting that psychologists and psychiatrists share and do a lot regarding the human mind and its components. There is a link between the validity of the subject of touch and the expulsion of demons from his inheritance. One of those doctors is Jafari, including a psychiatrist who specializes in schizophrenia. According to the Asia website, Dr. Jeffrey did not think about it at all, but considered it stupid to even think about it until the case occurred. He was asked to accompany me to the family psychiatrist to follow up on my case. The girl who I thought had been prescribed to the girl's doctor and co-worker for months, to no avail. Not during treatment. Something happened that the doctor is still unable to explain. The doctor says he was returning home in the evening, surprised by the lights that went out on their own, the pictures and paintings that fell on the messenger, and the harsh conditions that befell him upon his return from treatment sessions. The strange thing is that there is no hope that the doctor will mention to his colleague what is happening. He's surprised that she's also going through exactly the same things without any change. What happened cannot be said that demonic possession does not exist. But at the same time I have no evidence to prove its existence and the correctness of exorcism in the other heart. Opinions of the opposition completely rejecting this idea are tabulated. Moreover, neurologist, professor at Yale University School of Medicine 7 Novella, in more than one interview, Dr. Stephen emphasized the absence of so-called demonic possession and weight exorcism by tricks and fraud. For example, that the patient, the syllable, is possessed by the devil. He might keep the camel in Latin and threaten it with death. Why don't we talk to what he claims is evil and evil in the same language? And he says, while we help him from the films about these operations, that it is depicting the vagina, which is of course meaningless. He misses all the therapists and psychiatrists who make the patient's condition worse in their assertion, not his delusional claims. Of course, many other scholars and doctors who reject this idea and consider it a kind of fantasy and lies, and this is the opinion of science from both sides. So what is this opinion? Especially since all treatments are done using quotes from different religious books here, and the focus of the 2 second points we start with the Islamic opinion. While we find the mention of the legal ruqya in various Islamic schools and references based on the repeated hadiths of the Prophet contained in the great books of Muslims, we are going to the great Muslim scholars. The first opinion says between the satanic touch or the clothing of the jinn is based on a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah. Commentators: where does the devilish touch occur? The Holy Quran only, which is compensation. Tomatoes and important sentences. The meaning is a partnership with God, and I am a kind of forbidden magic. The other man says that the jinn are present and mentioned in the noble Quran, and he has a complete surah with a name in the Quran, which is Surah al-Jinn, because Satan and the jinn behind him have no authority over people. They do not wear it as some claim or kill them directly, But that does not go beyond describing demons by killing humans and urging them to sin. Meadow Henry. They depend on which of Sir Abraham, saying God Almighty, in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. And the devil said when the matter was over, God promised you the promise of truth, and I promised you, so he broke you. And I had no power over you except that I called you and you answered me. Of course, whoever believes in this view emphasizes the importance of the legal ruchyine cases of envy and the evil eye that were mentioned in the Crean, because they consider spirits and jinn in general to be concealed and revealed to us. And many of the cases that you think are from South are cases of mental patients who need only psychological treatment, and nothing else in Christianity. The matter is clear to the jinn if you do. But the demons exist as I mentioned earlier, and as it is clear from what we have mentioned, what is the exorcism of evil spirits that must have the cover and approval of the church? And you are a wonder. What, of course, when the Vatican laid down rules for regulating the fall of evil spirits, and the same is true of Judaism, which recognizes both jinn and demons, and of course chase and these practices, provided that only a rabbi experienced in this field performs the rituals we mentioned are honest. You are my friends in your opinion. Do you dare to attend one of these sessions live, my friends? This is some of what we have been able to come up with on the topic of demonic possession and methods of exorcism. A topic if you want a snake. We need long episodes to discuss it because of the different questions it contains. There are mental illnesses for which science has not been able to find a cure from now on, and broadcasting exorcism sessions in various religions is really the effective medicine to relieve pain that is weak in expressing their measurements, or is it one of the methods of fraud and unintentional killing, which often reflect ignorance great, and among supporters and opponents of scientists and specialists? The question now arises, will psychologists, neuroscientists, and perhaps even religious scholars be able to decipher the gaps? The human mind to know the truth of the devil's touch after what only God knows.